Okay, let's talk about discipline. But I want you to forget everything you think you know about it, that it's this constant, painful struggle. What if you could actually flip a switch in your brain and start to crave the hard work? I mean, really get a rush from it. In this explainer, we're going to break down how you can stop fighting yourself and start rewiring your mind to win. So let's dive in.
Yeah, I know. It sounds completely backward, right? But this one idea, this is probably the exact reason you feel so stuck. See, every single time you grit your teeth and say, okay, I'm going to force myself to do this, you're framing it as a war. And let me tell you, that's a war your brain is wired to lose every single time.
You already know what you should be doing. We all do, right? Get up earlier, go to the gym, work on that side hustle. So why? Why is there this massive gap between what we know and what we actually do? Well, that frustration you feel, that's not a sign that you're lazy or broken. It's a sign that you're using the wrong playbook.
All right, so let's pull back the curtain and see what's really going on here. This whole thing isn't about having more willpower or brute force. It's about neuroscience. The real problem is that we've totally misunderstood the opponent we're actually facing.
I want you to look closely at this slide because this one little shift in perspective changes the entire game. You are not lazy. Your brain has just been expertly trained by social media, by Netflix, by all the convenience in our lives to chase easy, cheap dopamine hits. Every scroll, every notification, it's a tiny little reward that reinforces one single command in your brain: seek comfort, avoid effort. And that, right there, is the crucial point. This whole time, you've been trying to overpower your brain's deeply ingrained reward system. But the real game is to hijack it. The question we should be asking isn't, how do I force this? It's, how do I make the feeling of progress more addictive than the feeling of comfort? So, how do we actually start? Well, funny enough, not by looking inward, but by looking around you. This first set of strategies is so powerful because it has absolutely nothing to do with motivation. You know, there's a saying, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And your environment, that's your biggest system of all.
Seriously, think about it. When that bag of chips is sitting right there in the pantry, staring you down, your willpower is going to be a finite resource. When your phone is buzzing on your desk while you're trying to work, you will eventually crack. It's not a sign of weakness, it's practically physics. You're just following the path of least resistance. So let's stop relying on willpower and start architecting an environment where discipline is the easiest choice to make.
So here's the playbook. It's simple. 1, what's the goal? Let's say I want to read a book before bed. 2, what's the friction? Well, the glowing screen of my phone is right there on the nightstand, and it's infinitely more stimulating. Okay, so 3, redesign. Charge your phone in the kitchen overnight, put the book on your pillow. All of a sudden, the path of least resistance leads you directly to your goal. You've just made discipline automatic. Your brain needs proof that the effort is paying off, you know? When your progress is totally invisible, your motivation just dies. But when you track your wins, even with a simple little check mark on a calendar, you make them real. You can see them. You start to build a chain. And the satisfaction of seeing that chain grow becomes this powerful reward. Your brain starts craving the feeling of adding another link, and pretty soon you become terrified of breaking it. Okay, now for a strategy that feels completely backward in our crazy, hyper-stimulated world. We've trained our brains to be so allergic to boredom that any kind of deep, focused work feels like a punishment. The antidote is to actually practice being bored. Go for a walk and leave your headphones at home. Just sit for 5 minutes without looking at a screen. When you recalibrate your brain to a baseline of just calm, focus no longer feels like a chore. It actually starts to feel like a relief. So once your environment is set up for victory, it's time to tackle the internal game. We all sit around waiting for that magical feeling of motivation to strike, but let's be honest, it's super unreliable. Momentum, on the other hand, is a force you can create out of thin air, and here's how you do it. You know, this is the biggest trap we all fall into. You try to go from 0 to 100, and your brain just hits the panic button. It sees that massive change as a threat, and it floods you with resistance. The secret is to start so ridiculously small that it's almost laughable. Read 1 page. Do 1 push-up. The point isn't the workout, it's the simple act of showing up. You're not trying to build muscle on day 1, you're trying to build the habit of consistency.
Burn this number into your brain, 5. This is your secret weapon for defeating procrastination for good. It is the absolute key.
And this slide explains exactly why that number is so powerful.
Your brain builds up a simple task into this unconquerable mountain, but when you tell yourself, look, I'll just do it for 5 minutes, you shrink that mountain down to a tiny little speed bump. The barrier to entry just vanishes. And you know the funny part? Once those 5 minutes are up and you've got that sweet, sweet momentum, you almost never want to stop.
I want you to think of this as weightlifting for your self-control. The next time you feel that itch to check your phone or grab a cookie, don't say no. Just say, not yet. Make a deal with yourself to wait just 10 minutes. In that tiny little pause, you are fundamentally rewiring your brain. You are teaching it in real time that you, not your fleeting impulses, are the one in charge.
Look, all these strategies we've talked about are incredibly effective tools. But to make this change permanent, we have to go one level deeper. We have to change not just what you do, but who you believe you are. This is the master key.
Now, this is not just a little word game. It's a complete paradigm shift. Trying is the language of struggle. It implies the possibility of failure. But I am, well, that's a statement of fact. It's an identity. The moment you start telling yourself, I am the kind of person who doesn't miss workouts, your actions will start to unconsciously align with that new belief. You just stop negotiating with your old self. And really, this is the end game. It's not about having an endless list of chores you have to force yourself to do. It's about performing these small, deliberate actions so consistently that they literally weave themselves into the fabric of your identity. Discipline stops being a burden and simply becomes who you are. So where do you begin? Not by trying to do all of this at once. That's the old way of thinking. No, you start with one. Just one small change. One new habit. One new piece of your identity. Real change doesn't just arrive in some flash of inspiration. It's built, it's earned. So look back at everything we've covered. Which one of these tools will you pick up and use today? Not tomorrow, today. Because the person you want to become is waiting for you, and they are built one small, disciplined choice at a time.